Janjoeica's Interdimensional Adventures, Episode 1 Pilot, a Midnight Voices iVox production. Chapter 1, Rain on the Roof, Wrench in the Hand. The rain came down like it had a grudge. It hammered the tin roof of the garage, ran in cold streams through the cracked concrete, and dripped rhythmically from the open hatch of the hover car. Janjoeica lay half on her back, half on her side beneath the chassis, both hands buried in the depths of the engine. Oil streaked across her freckled cheeks, and a loose strand of dark hair kept falling into her eyes no matter how many times she blew at it. "Come on, sweetheart," she muttered to the car. "You and me, we're gonna win that city circuit if it kills us." Guide crystal housing glowed a weak cyan, flickering like a tired lantern. There was a tiny buzz every time she adjusted the field stabilizer. Hover cars had been around for decades, but time crystal engines, those were still new, still experimental, still mostly illegal without the right permits. She didn't have the permits. "Janjoeica?" Shannon's voice floated into the garage just as a roll of thunder shook the walls. "I'm under here," she called, tightening the last bolt. "Watch your step. There's coolant everywhere." His boots still splashed in it. He stepped closer, rain dripping from his jacket, and she saw the bouquet before she saw his face stamp, wrapped in shiny foil, petals the soft red that looked too gentle for a place that smelled like grease and burn circuits. She slid out from under the car, wiping her hands on an old rag. At 24, she looked younger when she smiled, which she did now out of habit rather than happiness. "What's the occasion?" she asked. "Thought I'd surprise my girlfriend with something that isn't a wrench." Shannon tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Janjoeica lifted the bouquet carefully, like it was a fragile part from a rare engine. "They're beautiful," she said. She meant it. She always meant things. That was her problem. Lightning flashed, throwing the garage into sharp relief hover car tools, mismatched parts, oil stains, and one woman who looked like she wasn't built for any world that wanted her soft. "You better work on that thing all day?" Shannon asked, nodding at the car. "Hover races aren't until next month." "Exactly," she said. "Next month. If I don't tune the time crystal phasing now, the weather shift might destabilize the core." She shrugged. "You know, science." He sighed. "You know, I don't understand half of what you say when you're in mechanic mode." "That's okay," she said, voice light. "I barely understand me either." He didn't laugh. Instead, he looked around at the garage, at the hover car, at the shelves packed with parts, at the grease-stained overalls she wore over a faded tank top. "You're such a tomboy, Janjoeica." She froze. He kept going. "I mean, look at you. You're always in here. You never want to dress up, never want to go anywhere that doesn't have engines or noise or some kind of competition. You're like one of the guys." Her throat tightened. "I grew up with 6 brothers," she said quietly. "This is what I know." "I wanted to date a woman," Shannon said, each word like a small crack in the air. "Not a hover mechanic." The bouquet slipped from her hand. It hit the engine with a dull thud. The foil glinted, caught between exposed contacts and the humming time crystal housing. "Shannon." She started, but he was already turning away. "I can't do this," he said, voice flat. "I thought he'd change. Sooner or later." Her fragile heart, the one she hid under sarcasm and socket wrenches, did what it always did. It crept and kept beating anyway. "Then go," she said. The words came out steadier than she felt. "I'm not a project that needs to be finished." He hesitated just long enough to hurt her more, then left. The door slammed. The rain swallowed the sound. Janjoeica stood there, staring at the flowers lying across the engine like a joke the universe didn't know how to tell. "A tomboy," she whispered to herself. "Right. That's all I am." Her eyes blurred, and before she could stop them, tears rolled down her face, carving pale trails through the grease on her cheeks. She wiped them away with the rag, smearing oil into her skin. Then the engine sparked. Chapter 2, Lightning and Foil. The bouquet began to smoke. At first, Janjoeica thought it was just the humidity reacting with the residual charge in the time crystal array. But then the foil shifted, sliding down between 2 exposed conductors. "Oh, no, no, no," she muttered, lunging forward. A high-pitched whine rose from the engine. The time crystal flared from cyan to white, colors chasing each other in frantic, unnatural patterns along its facets. "Come on, sweetheart, don't do this to me," she said, hands flying over the controls, trying to shut down the phasing field. Outside, thunder roared. Inside, the bouquet wrapper completed a circuit it was never meant to touch. The room went white as lightning speared through the open garage door and into the exposed engine bay, attracted like a predator to prey. Power surged into the time crystal core, into the melted foil, into every coil and wire and circuit Janjoeica had ever carefully bolted together. For a second, she felt everything at once. The sting of Shannon's words, the weight of 6 older brothers teaching her how to throw a punch, but not how to stitch a broken heart, the future she'd imagined on a hover track, her name screamed by a roaring crowd. Then all of it was gone. No sound, no light, no feeling. Just a sensation like falling sideways through a crack in reality. Chapter 3. The Wrong Sky. Sam returned first. Not the pounding rain. Not the distant buzz of traffic in New Dallas. No hover sirens, no skyway hum. Instead, she heard birds soft, warbling calls that rose and fell in a pattern that made no earth sense. Then came light. Janjoeica opened her eyes. The garage was still there. The hover car was still suspended on its grav jacks, humming weakly. Tools lay scattered around her like fallen bones. But the sky outside the open door was wrong. It was too bright, too saturated. 2 suns hung low over a line of dense trees whose leaves glowed a shade of violet she had never seen in any spectrum chart. She pushed herself up, her muscles shaking. "Okay," she whispered. "Either I'm dead or no, not going there yet." The air smelled different, too thicker, sweeter, like rain mixed with fruit and metal. She stepped to the doorway and stared. Her street was gone. In its place stretched a forest of towering trees, with trunks the color of dark wine and hanging clusters of purple bananas that bobbed gently in a warm breeze. Floating among them were spheres of spores. She realized each one the size of a basketball, drifting lazily like soap bubbles in a park on a warm day. "This is not Neo Dallas," she said. Her heart pounded. Fear rose, but so did something else. A thin, sharp thread of curiosity. "Okay, mechanic's brain," she told herself. "Let's troubleshoot reality." Chapter 4. Stranded with a dead core. Back at the engine, the time crystal's glow had faded to a dim, sickly pulse. The diagnostics panel flickered and spat a few lines of illegible glyphs, as though the engine itself had forgotten how to speak her language. "Come on, don't do this to me." She slapped the console gently, like soothing an anxious animal. "You're my only rye." A quick scan told her enough. The core's phasing field had been forced into a surge beyond its designed capacity. The foil melted and fused along one side was now part of the circuit. The engine wasn't broken, so much has changed. "Congratulations," she muttered. "You're an accident." Battery power drained. The time crystal could still be coaxed, but only if the rest of the system had something to feed it. She looked up at the twin suns, their light pouring into the world like a promise. "Solar," she said softly. "You still work on sunlight, don't you, sweetheart?" She popped open the auxiliary panel in the trunk and exposed the solar recharge array, flexible black sheets of collector mesh originally designed for emergencies and long races. "Good enough." Carefully, she dragged the panels out, anchoring them just outside the garage on the alien soil. The collectors shimmered as they adjusted to the spectrum, auto-tuning themselves to absorb whatever this strange sky offered. A timer blinked to life on her console. "EST. Full charge. 8 NRS 14 min." She exhaled slowly. "So I'm stuck here overnight," she said. "In a different whatever this is." She walked back to the doorway and stared at the forest again. Purple bananas, floating spores, unknown fauna, unknown microbes, unknown everything. Her fragile heart, so easily bruised by one human's careless words, was now beating steadily in a place that didn't care who she dated, or how much grease was on her hands. "Brothers," she said under her breath, thinking of them. "You would lose your minds if you saw this." Growing up with 6 older brothers had taught her how to take a hit and get back up. It had also taught her how to hide when she wanted to cry. They'd taught her engines, games, fights, and jokes. Nobody had taught her what to do when someone said, "I don't want you the way you are." Here, at least, no one knew her yet. That was something. Chapter 5. Night Voices. She decided not to wander. Curiosity was one thing. Getting eaten by an alien tree was another. Instead, she checked over the hover car 3 more times, locked down anything loose, and finally climbed into the driver's seat. The cushioning was familiar. The smell of metal and fabric, of oil and faint ozone, wrapped around her like a rough blanket. Darkness fell faster here than she expected. Twin suns eased behind distant mountains, and the forest came alive. Strange whooping calls rose and fell in the distance, joined by chittering clicks and long, drawn-out whistles that reminded her of distant trains. She shifted, hugging herself. It's just animals, she told the voice in her head that still sounded like the youngest of her brothers talking around a flashlight during a blackout. Just a different kind of forest. One sound repeated more than the others, a low, rhythmic whoop-whoop-whoop that moved closer, then farther, circling the garage. Every instinct told her to duck down. Every lesson from Six Brothers told her to grab a wrench and be ready. She compromised by keeping a wrench in her lap and locking the doors. Sometime in the night, she dreamed of Shannon's face twisting into something monstrous, his voice layered with the whooping calls outside. In the dream, he said, "You're not enough of a girl. You're not enough of anything." She woke with tears on her face and her fist clenched tight around cold metal. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. "You're fine," she whispered to herself. "You always are. You always will be." Chapter 6. Six-toed Footprints. Morning came with blue-tinted light and a chorus of alien birds. Janjoeica slid out of the car, stretching until her spine popped. The air was warmer now, just cool enough to be pleasant. Her breath didn't fog, and the ground under her boots felt slightly springy, as if the soil had just enough give to make walking feel strange. Then she saw them. Footprints. They circled the garage and trailed off into the trees. Not the three-toed claw marks of some giant bird, but hooves. They were unmistakably humanoid heel-arch ball toes. 6 toes. 6. "Okay," she murmured. "Either I'm hallucinating, or someone here has a serious shoe problem." The prints were larger than hers, but not enormous. The spacing told her the creature person walked upright, with strides not too different from a human's. Her pulse quickened. "You're not alone," she said quietly to herself. "Good news or bad, you're not alone." The whoop-whoop-whoop sound started again, closer this time. She turned slowly toward the tree line. A figure stepped out from between the purple banana trunks. Chapter 7. Man and Mini Mokie. He was tall, maybe half a head taller than her. His skin was the color of apricot flesh, warm, bold and orange with a subtle inner glow when the suns hit it just right. His hair was dark and short, curled tight against his head. He wore woven fabric that looked like a cross between cloth and plant fiber, dyed in stripes of green and violet. His feet were bare, 6 toes on each foot, spreading slightly as he walked toward her. The extra toe didn't look wrong, exactly just different, as if evolution here had decided 5 was too few. He stopped a few meters away and studied her with wide, dark eyes. Not hostile, just curious. He pointed at his chest. "Man and Mini Mokie," he said slowly. Janjoeica stared for a second, then pointed at herself. "Janjoeica." He repeated it carefully. "Janjoeica." "Close enough," she said, smiling before she could stop herself. He gestured to his chest again. "Man and Mini Mokie." Then he touched his forehead, his chest, and then extended his hand outward, palm up. Something about the gesture made it feel like he was offering more than just a name. Maybe it meant person. Maybe so. Maybe fool who walks into alien garages. She mimicked him, touched her forehead, her chest. "Janjoeica." He grinned, bright and genuine. Then he reached into a sling bag at his side and pulled out a fruit. It was a purple banana smaller than the ones on the trees, as if it had been carefully picked. He held it out. She hesitated. 6 brothers had taught her not to accept things from strangers, especially if they glowed, but her stomach growled, and his expression was so open, it was hard to imagine malice. She took the banana. He peeled his own, demonstrating. The inside was pale lavender, with faint sparks of bioluminescence that faded as soon as the flesh met the air. He bit into it and chewed, watching her. "One way to find out," she muttered, and took a bite. It was sweet, with a fizzy aftertaste that tingled on her tongue. Her eyes widened. "Oh, that's dangerous," she said. "I could live on these." He laughed, a sound that didn't need translation. They ate together in comfortable silence, 2 beings from different universes sharing breakfast under twin suns. Chapter 8. Learning to speak Mokie. Most of the day was spent turning gestures into words. Janjoeica pointed at the hover car. "Car." He frowned, pointed at it himself. "Jalan." "Jalan," she repeated. He beamed. "Car," he said, attempting her word. "Car." "Good," she said. "We can be bilingual emergencies." He pointed at the sky. "Saru." "Sky," she said. "Sky," he echoed, then pointed at her greasy rag and then at her hands. "Jen. Pa?" "Priest," she answered. "Dirt. Work." She mimed turning the wrench. His eyes lit with understanding. He pointed at her, then at the car, and made the wrench gesture himself. Then he grinned. "Tomboy." The word hit her like a gentle slap. "Who taught you that?" she asked sharply. He tilted his head, confused. Tomboy. Bad? She exhaled slowly. No, not bad. Just complicated. She tapped her chest lightly. I am woman. Then she tapped the car. I fix. She tapped her heart softly. I still woman. He watched her carefully, then nodded with sudden seriousness. He kept his head, then his chest, then her. Janjoeica, he said firmly. No labels. Just her name. Her fragile heart tightened. She looked away, blinking quickly. Thanks, she mumbled. By late afternoon, they had a small shared vocabulary. Enough for basics. Eat, sleep, danger, yes, no. And one more word. He tapped his chest. Manamini Mokie. Then he tapped his arm. Mokie. Nickname? She asked. Short name? He nodded eagerly. Mokie. She smiled. Okay, Mokie. He tried her name again, slower, tasting each syllable. Janjoeica. No one's ever said it that carefully before, she said softly, and for a moment she forgot that she was stranded in an impossible forest. Chapter 9. Invitation. By the time the sun dipped toward the horizon, the recharge console in her hover car beeped. Battery. 100%. Core stabilization. Uncertain. Janjoeica stood with her hands on her hips, staring at the readout. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? She asked the engine. Mokie stepped closer, peering into the cockpit. Cargo? He asked. She nodded. Cargos. Maybe. Somewhere. He looked from the car to the forest behind him, then back to her. She saw it in his eyes, curiosity brighter than fear. You can come with me, you know, she said, speaking slowly, choosing words he knew. She pointed at herself, then at him, then traced a wide circle in the air. I'd go. You go. Together. He frowned in thought. His 6 toes dug into the soil as he shifted his weight. He is safe? He asked, haltingly. She laughed. Absolutely not. He stared at her for a beat, then grinned. Mokie go Janjoeica, he said. Her chest tightened. No one had ever chosen chaos with her quite that easily before. Okay then, she said, stepping aside and opening the passenger door. Welcome to the worst decision of your life. He climbed in, awkward at first, then settled into the seat, fingers tracing the stitching with wonder. You're okay with grease? She teased, holding up her stained hands. He reached out and gently took her wrist, studying the dark smears of oil like marks of honor. Janjoeica, he said, tapping her chest again. Good. Her heart did that fragile, dangerous flutter. She cleared her throat and focused on the controls. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into. Chapter 10. The Melted Circuit. She took a deep breath, fingers hovering over the ignition. Okay, sweetheart, she whispered to the car. You got us into this mess. Let's see if you can get us out. She activated the primary system. The dashboard lit up in a cascade of flickers, colors shifting as the time crystal responded to the twin suns' stored energy. The melted foil fused to its casing glowed faintly, like veins of mercury. Is normal? Mokie asked, eyeing the core readout. Nope, she said. Not even a little. She engaged the phasing field. The engine hummed, then shuddered. Reality around them seemed to quiver, like heat rising off asphalt on a summer day. Janjoeica tightened her grip on the controls. Core pulse in 3, 2, 1. She hit the switch. The car vibrated violently. The view outside warped trees stretching, colors bleeding, the sky folding in on itself like an image reflected in broken glass. Her stomach flipped sideways. Mokie grabbed the edges of his seat, eyes wide. Janjoeica. Got it, she grunted, wrestling with the controls. Almost. The hover car shot forward, not in any direction that obeyed sane physics, but through something. For a moment there was nothing but whiteness, like the inside of a cloud made of static. Then it was over. Chapter 11. Not home. The hover car stuttered and stabilized, its grav jacks humming against a surface that felt rough and uneven. Janjoeica let out a breath. She hadn't realized she was holding. We're alive, she said. That's a good start. Mokie slowly released his death grip on the seat. We move? He asked. She nodded. We moved. But where did we land? She looked out the windshield. The sky was green, a deep, soft emerald stretching from horizon to horizon, with streaks of pale white clouds moving far too slowly. The ground below them was a sea of violet sand, scattered with black stone pillars that jutted up at odd angles, like broken teeth. Definitely not home, she said quietly. Mokie leaned closer to the glass, eyes wide with equal parts fear and wonder. Pretty, he murmured. She glanced at him. His profile against the alien sky was strangely calming. Her chest ached suddenly, not from fear, but from the realization that home, as she'd known it, was behind her. The garage. The city. Her 6 brothers who would tease her, but still show up at every race. Shannon, who had thrown away a fragile, sane heart because it didn't come in the packaging he wanted. She swallowed. We might be traveling for a while, she admitted. Mokie nodded slowly. We find? He asked. You home? She considered. The idea should have terrified her. Instead, it felt strangely right. We find, she said. Together. Chapter 12. The slug-riders of the 24th dimension. They didn't stay long in the green sky desert. The melted foil in the crystal kept pulling the fizzing field off axis, like a compass with a magnet taped to it. Each jump became easier to trigger, but harder to steer. They passed through a dimension where the air tasted like metal and the ground pulsed like a heartbeat. Another where everything was fog in distant whispers. One where they almost collided with a floating city made of glass. Finally, they emerged into a world under a pale yellow sky. Here, the land was made of rolling hills covered in tough, silver grass that crunched under their boots. The air was mild, and a faint scent of rain lingered even when the sky was clear. They had barely set the hover car down when they saw them. Riders. They approached along a ridge, silhouettes cut against the sky. At first, Janjoeica thought they were on horses. Then the shapes resolved into something far more unsettling. They rode slugs. Enormous slug-like creatures, each the size of a ground truck, mottled green and brown with glistening, rippling bodies. Their eye stalks were adorned with rings and ribbons, and their backs bore saddles, harnesses, and gear. Okay, Janjoeica whispered. That's new. Mokie watched them with narrowed eyes. Riders, he said in his language, then added in hers, slug-riders. The slug-riders approached slowly, weapons holstered but visible. Their clothes were practical leather and woven cloth dusted with travel. They wore masks over their mouths, perhaps against the ever-present silver dust. One rider dismounted and approached, stepping carefully in heavy boots. She lifted her mask, revealing a weathered face lined by sun and wind. Her eyes were sharp. She studied Janjoeica, then Mokie, then the hover car. You're not from here, she said in accented, but understandable standard. Janjoeica blanked. You speak. We've had visitors before, the woman said. Most don't stay. Some can't. Mokie shifted closer to Janjoeica, his shoulder brushing hers. The contact steadied her more than she expected. We're looking for a place to stay, Janjoeica said carefully. Somewhere we won't be a problem. The rider considered them. Her gaze lingered a moment longer on Mokie's 6 toes, then moved on. You can rest in our town, she said. Work, eat, sleep. But understand this dimension has rules. Janjoeica exchanged a look with Mokie. We're good with rules, she lied. The rider nodded once. Come then. My name is Hera. Welcome to the 24th. Chapter 13. A fragile piece. The slug-riders' town was built into the sides of a shallow canyon, stone structures carved from layered rock, connected by rope bridges and ramps. The slugs themselves grazed on thick, mossy shelves that grew from the canyon walls. Life here was simple, but not easy. Janjoeica found work fixing things. Slug harnesses, broken winches, damaged water turbines that drew up clean water from underground reserves. The locals watched her with wary curiosity at first, but tools spoke a universal language. Mokie helped too. He was quick with his hands and quicker with people, learning words faster than she did, laughing easily with children who tugged at his fingers and asked about his glowing spin. At night they sat on the edge of a low rooftop, legs dangling over the canyon, watching the yellow sky fade to deep amber. Janjoeica would lean back on her hands, shoulders brushing Mokie's. Do you miss your home? She asked him one evening, speaking a mix of standard and his language. He considered. Yes, he said slowly, but I miss what home was long time ago, before they say my toes cursed. She looked at his feet, at the 6 toes spread on the warm stone. Where I come from we call that an advantage, she said. Better balance. More surface area. Better grip. He laughed softly. You see good in broken things. She shrugged. Someone has to. Do you miss yours? He asked. She thought of her brothers loud, chaotic, unrefined. Of nights playing hover racing sims until sunrise. Of them cheering at her first real race, then patching her up when she crashed. I miss them, she said. I don't miss how the rest of the world made me feel. How? He asked gently. Like I was wrong, she said. Too much or not enough. Too rough to be a real woman. Too soft to be one of the boys. Mokie watched her for a long moment. Then he reached out and, very carefully, touched her hand. Here, he said, with the kind of certainty she'd never heard from anyone else, you are right. Her eyes stung. She looked away, pretending to study the slugs below. You're not allowed to be nicer to me than I am to myself, she muttered. He squeezed her hand once, then let go. Too late, he replied. Chapter 14. The Rule of 5. The first sign of trouble came slowly. Whispers. At the market, conversations would quiet when Mokie walked by. People who had once waved now nodded curtly. Children were called back, a little sooner. Janjoeica noticed. She always noticed changes in noise. That was how she'd learned to hear when an engine was about to fail. One day, Hera approached her while she was repairing a damaged turbine. You and your friend, Hera, began carefully. How long do you intend to stay? Janjoeica sat up, wiping sweat and grease from her brow. We hadn't planned that far ahead, she said. We were kind of enjoying the whole not being almost killed by the environment thing. Hera's expression didn't change. We have traditions, she said. Old ones. Deep ones. The people here, they fear what is different. Some will never say it aloud. Others. She glanced toward a small group of riders on a distant ledge, watching them with narrowed eyes. Is this about me being a tomboy? Janjoeica asked, attempting a joke. Hera shook her head. They don't care how you dress. We have women who ride slugs into sandstorms. We have men who weave and sing. That's not the problem. Then what is? Hera hesitated. Here, in the 24th, she said slowly, we have the rule of 5. 5 fingers. 5 toes. 5 sacred directions. 5 kinds of rain. Anything beyond 5 is seen as excess. Imbalance. Bad luck. The words sank in like stones. Janjoeica's stomach dropped. Mokie, she whispered. Hera nodded. They see his feet. His extra toes. They whisper purse. A sign that more bad years will come. Janjoeica felt a familiar heat rise in her chest, the same ruthless projectedness she'd felt when anyone had picked on her youngest brother in school. That's ridiculous, she said sharply. He's kind. He works. He helps. He's done more good here than... It doesn't matter, Hera cut in, though her eyes were sympathetic. Tradition doesn't care about kindness. Fear doesn't care about facts. Janjoeica clenched her jaw. What happens if they decide he's cursed? Hera's voice dropped. He will not be allowed to stay, and if he tries, the unspoken threat hung between them. Janjoeica stood, fists tight around a wrench. They'll have to go through me, she said, and I've been outnumbered my entire life. Hera studied her a moment, then sighed. I thought you'd say that. Chapter 50. The Arrest. It happened at dusk. Janjoeica was elbow-deep in the hovercar's engine, tuning the phasing dampeners, while Mokie helped load storage crates near the canyon entrance. She heard the yelling first. Mokie! Someone shouted. Hands up! She dropped her tools and ran. 3 slug-riders, armed with shock spears, had surrounded Mokie. Their slugs shifted uneasily, sensing tension. A small crowd had formed, keeping their distance, but not intervening. Mokie stood in the center, hands raised slowly, confusion and anger warring on his face. What's going on? Janjoeica demanded, pushing through the crowd. One of the riders turned toward her. His mask was down. His eyes glittered with something harsh. Outsider, he said, stand back. This doesn't concern you. The hell it doesn't, she snapped. He's with me. He is cursed, the rider said. 6 toes. 6 signs of imbalance. We've had 3 bad harvests, 2 storms that took our slugs. The elders say the pattern is clear. Janjoeica stared at him. You're blaming him for the weather? She asked incredulously. Are you serious? It is decided, another rider said. He will be taken to the stone cells until the elders decree what to do. Mokie's eyes met hers. There was fear there, yes, but also a strange calm, as if part of him had expected this. Janjoeica, he said softly, it okay? No, she said. It's not. She stepped forward, but a shock spear was suddenly at her chest, humming dangerously. You would challenge the rule of 5? The first rider asked. For a cursed one. Janjoeica's 6 brothers flashed through her mind, 3 who mouthed off at authority, 3 who learned to pick their battles. She'd spent her whole life trying to be a different kind of fighter. She stepped back, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Fine, she said quietly. Kick him. But if you hurt him, I swear. You have no say, the rider said, turning away. They marched Mokie toward the stone cells carved into the canyon wall. He glanced back once, and in that look, she saw everything he didn't say. Don't do anything stupid. Please be stupid anyway. Her heart felt like glass under a hammer. Chapter 16. Plans and Promises. Night fell heavy and cold. Janjoeica sat in the hovered car, staring at the engine but seeing nothing. Her hands moved automatically, checking connections, recalibrating readings, rewiring auxiliary circuits. Hera appeared in the doorway. Shadow cut in across the dim light. "You're going to do something reckless," Hera said. Janjoeica didn't look up. "Yes," she said. "Can I talk you out of it?" "No." Hera sighed and stepped closer. "The elders have not yet decided his fate," she said. "If you wait." "If I wait," Janjoeica cut in, finally meeting her eyes, "I might decide his fate as a shallow grave in the silver grass." She shook her head. "I'm not losing him because some people can't count past 5 without screaming." Hera's lips twitched to spite herself. "You're stirring up a storm." "I've lived in storms my whole life," Janjoeica said. 6 brothers, remember?" She turned back to the engine. Several of the hover car's defensive subsystems, designed to repel trapped debris and cheating rivals, now fed into a modified energy projector. It wasn't meant to be a weapon. She turned it into one through sheer stubbornness and desperation. Hera watched her in silence for a moment. "Where will you go?" Hera asked quietly. Janjoeica shrugged, shoulders tight. "Anywhere else," she said. "Everywhere else. Doesn't matter. We'll keep jumping until we find a place that doesn't care how many toes you have." Hera stepped forward and placed a small object on the console, a metal disc inscribed with intricate patterns. "This is a signal marker," she said. "If you ever find your way back here, if things change, set this on the ground. Slug-riders will come." Janjoeica stared at it. "Why help me?" she asked. Hera folded her arms. "Because tradition is a stubborn animal," she said, "but it isn't always right. And because when the storms came, we blamed the wrong things." Her voice softened. "And because he helped my grandson learn to walk again. Cursed or not, I owe him." Janjoeica swallowed hard. "Thank you," she said. Hera nodded once. "You'll have a small window tonight," she said. "Guards rotate every 2 bells." "You didn't hear that from me." Janjoeica's lips curved in a grim smile. "No," she said. "Must have been the wind." When Hera left, Janjoeica took a deep breath and leaned over the console. She whispered, "I'll get you out, Mokie. I promise. Wait by your cell window. I'll bust you out tonight after the hovered car batteries are charged." Saying it aloud made it real. Her heart hurt. But this time, the hurt came with purpose. Chapter 17. A Tear in the Sky. The horizon cracked open. Janjoeica gripped the hovergraph's trembling controls as the sky split into sheets of blue fire. The contaminated time crystal core pulsed like a living heart beneath the floorboards. Her hands, callous from years under engines, trembled with both fear and awe. "Mokie!" she shouted over the roar. "Hold on, she's breaking phase!" Mokie wrapped his 6 stout hands around the support bar above him, his golden apricot skin lit by arcs of blue light. "What happens now?" "Now?" Janjoeica's voice cracked, half laughter, half panic. "We pray this thing doesn't tear us in half." The world went sideways. The garage her world flickered in front of her eyes for an instant. Then it was gone again, replaced by swirling geometric storms and rivers of liquid light. Mokie reached for her hand, and for her heartbeat. They were weightless, 2 lost beings spinning through the fabric of forever. Chapter 18. Through the Shattered Veil. The craft punched through the veil and fell hard. They slammed into a plain of white dust under a violet moon. The engine sputtered and died. Silence followed so deep that Janjoeica could hear her own pulse thudding in her ears. Mokie stumbled out, blinking. "This place, it smells like sleep." Janjoeica laughed breathlessly, leaning against the hood. If sleep smelled like burnt circuits and ozone, maybe. She looked up at the sky, torn clouds drifting like veils over a broken planet. It was quiet, too quiet. Even the stars seemed to keep their distance. Mokie's golden eyes glimmered. "Do you ever wish you stayed home?" She hesitated. "Home was never much of a home, Mokie. 6 brothers, 1 bathroom, and a father who thought girls belonged in aprons. I learned to fix engines before I learned to braid my hair." Mokie tilted his head, curious. "That is why you fight like thunder. You grew up with storms." Janjoeica smiled faintly. "Storms toughen the skin, but not the heart. She turned away, blinking back tears she didn't want him to see. Come on. Let's set up camp before this place decides to eat us. Chapter 19. The Quiet Dimension. They made camp under the husk of an old skyport tower, its metal bones sticking out of the dust like the skeleton of a long, dead god. The only sound was the soft hum of the time crystal cooling down. Janjoeica set a small fire using spark gel from her toolkit. Mokie sat close, his eyes were reflecting the flames. You are sad, he said gently. Not because of me, but because of something you left behind. Janjoeica stared into the fire. Maybe, or maybe it's just the silence here. Back home, there was always Noise Brothers wrestling, hoverbikes screaming down the road. I didn't realize how much I missed the chaos. Mokie chuckled softly. In my world, silence meant peace. Noise meant danger. She looked at him, intrigued. So when I talk too much, that's danger. He grinned. When you talk too much, it means we are alive. Janjoeica laughed, a soft, real laugh this time. You know what, Mokie? You might just be smarter than me. Impossible, he said, smiling. You are Janjoeica, the woman who wrestled lightning and lived. Chapter 20. Confession. Under alien stars. The sky above them shimmered with twin moons that danced around each other like lovers. The silence became comforting instead of eerie. Mokie lay on his back, staring at the moons. In my dimension, 6 toes mean cursed, he said suddenly. It means our blood runs wrong. My people sent me away. Janjoeica glanced at him. They exiled you because of that? He nodded. Because I was born different. You understand that? Her chest tightened. Yeah, I do. When I was 15, my brothers built hover racers out of scrap. They never let me join. Said I'd get hurt. I built my own, crashed it, broke my leg and then rebuilt it better. They stopped laughing after that. She smiled, small and proud. Guess I've been proving people wrong ever since. Mokie turned toward her, his expression soft. You are brave. I'm tired of being brave, she whispered. I just want to be seen. Mokie reached out, brushing a strand of greased dark hair from her cheek. His touch was warm, gentle. Then see me, because I see you. The moment hung there, fragile and infinite, as the moons crossed paths above. Chapter 21. New Purpose. The next morning, the air was crisp and humming with faint static. The hovercraft systems flickered back online, the time crystal finally stabilized. Janjoeica stretched, sore but determined. We can go anywhere now. Mokie ran a hand over the control console. Where will we go? She thought for a long moment. Some place that doesn't care about what you look like or how you were born. Somewhere we can start over. He smiled faintly. You mean home? Yeah, she said, climbing into the driver's seat. But not the kind you're born into, the kind you build with your own hands. Mokie nodded. Then we build it together. Janjoeica's voice softened. Deal. She fired the engines. The ground trembled, dust swirling like fog. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't running from something, she was running toward something new. Chapter 22. The infinite road ahead. The hovercraft lifted off, glowing like a comet under the twin moons. Janjoeica grinned, went tangling her hair. Mokie sat beside her, his hand resting lightly over hers on the controls. So, he said, smirking, how about that tropical dimension you promised? She laughed. With purple bananas and hot showers? Yeah, we'll find it. Do you think it exists? She met his eyes. It does now. The craft rose higher, engines humming with the pulse of 1,000 universes. The scar in the sky stitched itself back together, forming the doorway of shifting colors. Janjoeica took a deep breath, her heart steady for the first time since the lightning strike that changed her fate. Let's go, partner. Mokie squeezed her hand. To everywhere. The hovercraft surged forward, slicing through the light, leaving behind the ghosts of who they were, chasing the promise of who they could become. As the stars blurred into streaks of gold and violet, a new adventure waited on the other side. End of episode 1.